Hello, friend. I'm Hope, and I'm really glad you're here today. Welcome to English with Hope, a calm space for your mind and your heart. In this channel, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to rush. Here, we learn English slowly. We listen English gently. No pressure, no stress. And here, you are not alone. Wherever you are in the world, I'm right here with you. So relax your shoulders, take a slow breath, and let's begin. There is a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. You know the one. You wake up in the morning, and for just a second, everything is okay. The room is quiet, the light is soft, and then, before you even sit up, it starts again. The list, the worry, the thing you said last week that you still haven't forgiven yourself for. The email you haven't answered, the question that has no answer. The low, quiet hum of everything that needs to be done, everything that might go wrong, everything that isn't resolved yet. And it's not even loud. That's the strange part. It's not a panic. It's not a crisis. It's just a constant background noise, like a television left on in another room. You can't quite hear what it's saying, but you always know it's there. Most of us have learned to live inside that noise. We've gotten so used to it that we don't even call it noise anymore. We just call it life. We call it being responsible. We call it having a lot on our plate. And we keep moving. We keep scrolling. We keep filling the silences with music, with podcasts, with other people's voices, because silence, real silence, has started to feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe even a little frightening, because when everything goes quiet, we're still there. And sometimes, that's the part we're not sure what to do with. I think that's why the idea of a quiet mind feels so strange to so many people. Not because we don't want it. We do. We want it desperately. But somewhere along the way, we started to believe that a quiet mind means an empty mind, or a mind that has nothing left to worry about, a mind that has solved everything, forgiven everything, figured everything out. And so we wait. We wait until the situation is resolved, until the relationship makes sense, until the career feels stable, until we finally understand what we want from this life. We keep waiting for the outside world to become quiet first, and we wonder why the inside never follows. I want to sit with you today in that space, not to fix it, not to give you 5 steps toward inner peace, not to tell you that you just need to meditate more or think less or breathe differently. I just want to explore something with you, something quiet, something that maybe you already know, somewhere deep inside, but haven't had the right words for yet. The art of a quiet mind. Not a perfect mind. Not an enlightened mind. Not a mind that never worries, or wanders, or wakes up at 3 in the morning, replaying old conversations. Just a quieter one. A mind that can, sometimes, find a moment of stillness, even in the middle of everything. That's what this episode is about, and I'm glad you're here for it. I want to ask you something, not a big question, just a small one. Can you remember a moment, even one, when your mind was truly quiet, not asleep, not distracted, not numb from scrolling, or exhausted into silence, but genuinely, peacefully, still? Take a second with that. For some people, it's a place, a specific place they can still picture clearly, even years later. A beach at an unusual hour when no one else was there. A forest path where the only sound was leaves. A small room in a house they used to love. A seat by a window on a train, watching the landscape blur softly past. For some people, it's a moment in the middle of something ordinary, washing dishes and suddenly noticing the warmth of the water, sitting in a garden and realizing for just a few seconds that the mind had gone completely still. Not because anything was solved, not because life had gotten easier, but because something small and quiet had simply let go. And then it passed, as those moments always do. And you came back to the noise, back to the list, back to the low constant hum of everything waiting for your attention. But that moment stayed with you. Somehow, maybe you didn't even realize it stayed, but it did. Because here you are, still able to remember it, still able to feel, even faintly, what it felt like to be inside it. I remember a moment like that. I was sitting outside, very early in the morning, before the day had really started. The sky was that strange color it sometimes is, not quite dark, not quite light. Everything felt suspended somehow, like the world was holding its breath. I had a cup of tea in my hands. It was warm. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. I wasn't trying to be calm. I wasn't doing a breathing exercise or repeating a positive thought. I was just sitting there, watching the sky change color so slowly you could barely notice it moving. And for maybe 10 minutes, maybe less, my mind was quiet, not empty. There were still thoughts, but they were far away, like clouds passing at a great height. I could see them, but I didn't feel pulled into them. I didn't need to chase them or solve them or push them away. They were just there, and so was I, and everything was strangely okay. That's the memory I come back to sometimes, not because I think I need to recreate it exactly. I can't. That morning won't come back. That particular sky, that particular silence, it's gone. But what it pointed to, that feeling of being present without needing anything to be different, that isn't gone. That's still possible. Not always, not on demand, but sometimes. And I think learning to recognize those moments and maybe gently invite more of them, that might be one of the quietest and most important things we can do for ourselves. But before we get there, I want to be honest about something, because I think sometimes we talk about inner quiet as though it's simply a choice, as though the mind is a room and all you need to do is tidy it up a little, turn off the lights, close the door. It's not that simple, and pretending it is doesn't help anyone. The mind is noisy for reasons, and some of those reasons go back a long way. That's what I want to explore next, not to make things heavier, but because understanding something, even a little, can sometimes be the first thing that makes it lighter. Why the mind keeps talking. Here's something that took me a long time to understand. The noise in your mind is not your enemy. I know how that might sound, because it often feels like an enemy. It feels like something working against you, keeping you up at night, pulling you out of conversations, stealing the quiet moments, before you even have a chance to settle into them. But the noise, that constant inner talking, that endless reviewing and planning and worrying, it didn't arrive to make your life harder. It arrived to protect you. Think about it this way. When you were younger, much younger, the world was uncertain. Maybe it was uncertain in big ways, maybe in small, everyday ways, but your mind learned very early that thinking ahead was safer than being caught off guard, that replaying what went wrong helped you avoid making the same mistake, that staying alert, staying prepared, staying one step ahead of whatever might happen next, that was how you stayed okay. And it worked, in a way. It worked. Your mind became very good at scanning, at predicting, at preparing, at keeping the list updated, and the worries organized, and the potential problems already half solved before they even arrived. It became, in its own exhausting way, very efficient. The problem is that the mind doesn't always know when to stop. It learned that vigilance was safety, and so it keeps being vigilant, even when you're lying in bed at 10 o'clock at night and nothing is actually wrong, even when the day is over and there is genuinely nothing left to solve, even in the moments that are supposed to be rest. The mind keeps talking because somewhere deep inside, it believes that if it stops, something might go wrong. It's not irrational. It's just a very old habit, running in a very new life. And here's the part that I find quietly fascinating. Most of us, when we notice the mental noise, our first instinct is to fight it, to tell it to stop, to get frustrated with ourselves for thinking too much, to lie there at midnight, feeling annoyed that our brain won't just be quiet already. Which, if you think about it, is just more noise. We add the thought, why can't I stop thinking, on top of all the other thoughts. We layer frustration over worry, self-criticism over exhaustion, and then we wonder why the mind feels so crowded. Fighting the noise makes it louder. Not always, but often. There's a different way to relate to it. Not agreement, not surrender, not just letting every anxious thought run wherever it wants, but something closer to acknowledgement, a quiet recognition. Oh, there you are again. I see you. You're trying to help, I know. It sounds almost too simple to work, and I won't pretend. It immediately dissolves everything. It doesn't. Some nights the mind is loud, and it stays loud, and you just have to wait it out. But over time, slowly, gradually, something shifts when you stop treating your own mind like an opponent. When you stop fighting yourself, you use less energy, and with a little more energy comes a little more space. And in that space, sometimes something quiet can begin. There's a small thing you might try, not tonight necessarily, but sometime. When you notice the mental noise starting, the loop, the list, the low hum of worry, instead of trying to silence it, just name it, not dramatically, just quietly, to yourself. There's the planning voice. There's the worry about tomorrow. There's the thing I said 3 years ago that I'm still thinking about, apparently. Just name it, gently, like noticing weather. You don't have to change it. You don't have to fix it. You just notice. It's there. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the simple act of noticing creates just enough distance for one small breath of quiet to slip through. That's enough for now. Can I say something that might feel a little uncomfortable? Most of us are more tired than we admit. Not just physically tired, though that too, but tired in a way that's harder to explain. Tired in a way that a good night's sleep doesn't completely touch. Tired in a way that sometimes appears in the middle of a perfectly fine day. A sudden flatness, a quiet hollowness. A moment where you look around at your life and feel not unhappy exactly, just heavy. And we don't really have a word for it, so we don't talk about it. We say we're fine. We say we're just busy. We say we'll rest when things calm down, when the project is finished, when the season changes, when life gets a little easier. We keep promising ourselves rest that never quite arrives. I think one of the reasons the mind struggles to be quiet is that it is carrying so much more than we acknowledge. Not just tasks, not just responsibilities. Emotional weight, the weight of conversations that didn't go the way you hoped, the weight of relationships that are complicated and unresolved, the weight of things you wanted by now that haven't happened yet, the weight of small disappointments that you never let yourself fully feel because there wasn't time, or it felt too small to deserve attention, or you told yourself to just move on. All of that goes somewhere. It doesn't disappear because you didn't look at it. It goes quiet. It goes underneath, and it adds itself to the hum. I think about this sometimes, about how much energy it takes to carry things we've never put down. Imagine walking around all day with a bag on your back, a heavy one, and you've been carrying it so long that you've stopped noticing the weight. It's just part of how moving feels now. Part of what being you feels like. And someone asks, "Are you tired?" And you say, "A little, I suppose, but I'm fine." Because you are fine, you're functioning, you're getting through the days, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. But the bag is still there, and some part of you is using a tremendous amount of quiet energy just to keep carrying it. A quiet mind isn't really possible when we're carrying things we haven't acknowledged. Not because we need to solve everything first, not because we need to fully heal every wound before we're allowed to rest, but because acknowledgement itself, just seeing what's there, just saying, "Yes, this has been hard," takes weight off. Not all of it, but some. And some is enough to begin with. There's something I want to gently offer here, not an exercise, not a practice, just a question you can sit with whenever you're ready. What are you carrying right now that you haven't named yet? Not the big things necessarily. Sometimes it's the small ones that accumulate the most, the small frustrations, the small griefs, the small moments of loneliness in the middle of days that looked fine from the outside. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't have to write it down. You don't even have to fully understand it. Just let yourself know that it's there. That's all. Just let yourself know. Because here is something I believe quietly and completely. The mind doesn't need to be forced into stillness. It needs to feel safe enough to rest. And safety begins with honesty, with allowing yourself to say, even just internally, even just for a moment, "This has been a lot, and I am more tired than I've been letting myself feel." That small honesty is not weakness, It is, in its own quiet way, the beginning of relief. So, friend, have you ever wondered what quiet actually feels like? I want to be honest about something. When most people imagine a quiet mind, they imagine something that looks a little like this. A person sitting perfectly still, eyes closed, face completely relaxed. No thoughts at all, just pure peaceful emptiness, like a lake, with no ripples, like a sky, with no clouds. And then they try to meditate for 4 minutes and think about sandwiches the entire time and conclude that a quiet mind is simply not available to them. I understand that feeling, but I think we've been imagining quiet incorrectly. A quiet mind is not the absence of thought. Thoughts will always come. That's what minds do. They think, they associate, they wander down small corridors and end up in rooms you didn't plan to visit. They remember things from 15 years ago with sudden unexpected clarity. They compose grocery lists in the middle of important conversations. They do all of this because they are alive and working and human. Trying to have no thoughts is not a quiet mind. It's just a frustrated mind, pretending. Real quiet, the kind that actually feels like something, is different. It's more like this. You're still thinking, but the thoughts aren't running you. You notice them, you let them pass. You don't grab everyone and follow it down into its full story. You don't build each small worry into a large structure. You don't add commentary to every feeling. You don't explain yourself to yourself constantly. You just let things move through without gripping them so tightly. And in the spaces between, in those small gaps where one thought ends and another hasn't started yet, there is something that feels a little like air, a little like room, a little like coming home to a place you didn't know you'd been missing. The strange thing about that kind of quiet is that it doesn't always feel dramatic. I think we expect inner peace to feel extraordinary, to feel like a revelation, to feel like something finally breaking open inside you, some deep release, some wave of profound understanding. And sometimes it does feel like that. But more often, it feels like a Tuesday afternoon when nothing is wrong. It feels like sitting with a warm drink and realizing you haven't checked your phone in 20 minutes. It feels like a conversation that ends and you notice your body is relaxed. It feels like waking up and lying still for a moment and not immediately reaching for anything. It feels ordinary, quietly, gently, ordinary, and that's exactly why we miss it. We're so busy waiting for the extraordinary experience of peace that we walk straight past the ordinary moments of it that are already there. I think about the times I have felt genuinely quiet inside. It was never when I was trying to be. It was never the result of effort or discipline or doing everything right. It was always when I had stopped pushing against something. When I had, in some small way, let something be what it was instead of trying to make it different. A difficult feeling I stopped arguing with, a situation I couldn't control, and finally, tiredly, stopped pretending I could. A version of myself I had been resisting for a long time, and one day, quietly, just accepted. The quiet came in those moments, not as a reward, not as a result, just as a natural consequence of releasing something I had been holding very tightly without realizing it. And here is the part that took me the longest to understand. Quiet is not something you achieve. It's something you return to. It's already there, underneath everything, underneath the noise and the worry and the lists and the replaying and the planning and the quiet hum of all those unresolved things. It was there before the noise started, and it never actually left. It just got buried under a lot of living. There's a way of thinking about the mind that I find genuinely comforting. Imagine the mind as a snow globe. When it's shaken by stress, by fear, by too much input, by exhaustion, everything swirls. The snow fills the water. Everything is movement and blur, and you can't quite see clearly through any of it. But if you set it down, if you just set it down and leave it alone for a little while, the snow settles. Not because you forced it, not because you reached inside and pushed every flake down by hand, but because settling is what it naturally does. When it's allowed to, your mind is like that. The quiet is always there, at the bottom, clear and still, waiting. You don't create it. You just stop shaking the globe long enough to let it return. I know that sounds simple, and I know that in practice, setting the globe down is not always easy. Life keeps shaking it. Other people shake it. Your own habits shake it. Old fears shake it before you even notice they've arrived. But the image matters because it changes the question. Instead of asking, how do I create a quiet mind? Which implies you are building something from nothing, which implies enormous effort and discipline and achievement. The question becomes softer. What can I put down just for a moment that I've been holding too tightly? What can I stop arguing with just tonight? What would happen if I let this feeling be here without immediately trying to fix it or explain it or make it go away? These are quieter questions, and quieter questions tend to lead somewhere gentler. Something small you might try, not as a practice, just as an experiment. At some point today, or tonight, or tomorrow morning, whenever feels right, find 1 minute. Just one. Put your phone face down, or close your laptop, or just sit back in whatever chair you're in right now. And don't try to be calm. Don't try to clear your mind. Don't try to achieve anything at all. Just sit there and let your mind do whatever it does. Watch it gently, the way you might watch rain on a window. Not trying to stop the rain, not wishing it were sunshine, just watching. And notice somewhere underneath all the movement, if there is something that feels even faintly like stillness. It might be very small. It might last only a second or two, but it's there. It's always been there. And that small recognition, that quiet is not somewhere else, not something other people have, not a state that requires years of practice before it's available to you. That recognition alone can change something. Not everything, but something, and something is where everything begins. There is a word I want to sit with for a moment. Surrender. I know how it sounds. It sounds like giving up. It sounds like weakness. It sounds like lying down. in the middle of the road and letting everything pass over you. That's not what I mean. The kind of surrender I'm talking about is much quieter than that, much smaller. It doesn't look like anything dramatic. From the outside, it doesn't require a decision or ceremony or a moment of profound realization. It looks like this. It looks like stopping for just a second and admitting, only to yourself, no one else needs to hear it, that you cannot think your way out of everything, that some things will not be solved tonight, that some questions will not be answered by morning, no matter how many times you turn them over in the dark, that some feelings are not problems to be fixed. They are just feelings, moving through on their way somewhere else if you let them. That small admission, that tiny, private surrender is one of the most quietly powerful things. I know. I think a lot of us were taught, in one way or another, that the mind should be in control, that thinking harder leads to better answers, that worrying about something is at least doing something, that if you just analyze the situation enough times, from enough different angles, eventually the right answer will dissolve and you will finally know what to do. And sometimes that's true. Some problems do yield to thinking. Some questions do have answers that careful reflection can find. But a lot of life, most of life, honestly, doesn't work that way. Most of the things that keep us awake at night are not puzzles waiting to be solved. They are uncertainties waiting to be lived through. They are feelings waiting to be felt. They are situations that will unfold in their own time, in their own way, regardless of how many hours we spend rehearsing them in our heads. And yet, we keep rehearsing because it feels like control, because not thinking about something feels dangerous, irresponsible, like turning your back on a problem. But here's something I've noticed. The things I've worried about most, the situations I've rehearsed hundreds of times, turned over endlessly, analyzed from every possible angle, almost never resolved. The way I imagine, they resolved in ways I couldn't have predicted. They resolved on timelines I couldn't have planned. They resolved through small unexpected moments that no amount of mental preparation could have anticipated. All that rehearsing didn't make them go better. It just made the waiting harder. I'm not saying stop caring. I'm not saying become indifferent to your life. I'm saying there is a difference between genuine, thoughtful reflection and the anxious, circular thinking that feels like reflection, but is really just fear wearing a very convincing disguise. Real reflection moves. It goes somewhere. It shifts something. It produces a small clarity, even if incomplete. Anxious circular thinking stays in the same place. It asks the same questions and arrives at the same uncertain answers, and then asks the questions again. It exhausts without illuminating. It occupies without resolving. And learning to tell the difference, not perfectly, not always, but gradually, is one of the quieter skills a mind can develop. The small surrenders look different for different people. For some people, it's putting the phone down at night before they feel ready to. Not because they've run out of things to look at, but because they recognize that what they're really looking for, some feeling of resolution, some sense of completion, some comfort at the end of a long day, is not going to be found there. And choosing quietly, to stop looking. For some people, it's allowing a feeling to be present without immediately building a story around it. Noticing sadness without immediately asking why you're sad and what caused it and what it means and whether something is wrong with you. Just letting the sadness be there for a minute, feeling it in the body, in the chest, or the throat, or that specific heaviness behind the eyes, without narrating it to death. For some people, it's leaving a problem unsolved overnight, genuinely deciding, not as a failure, but as a choice, that this particular question can wait until morning. That you are allowed to close the day without having everything resolved, that the problem will still be there tomorrow, and you will be better equipped to meet it after rest than after another 2 hours of exhausted circling. These are small surrenders. None of them are dramatic. All of them require something. They require trust, a very quiet, very fragile, very important kind of trust. Trust that the mind can rest without the world falling apart. Trust that not thinking about something for a few hours doesn't mean you're abandoning it. Trust that you are allowed to be a human being who needs stillness, not just a thinking machine that needs to optimize. That trust doesn't come easily, especially if you spent years in environments where rest felt unsafe, where being still felt irresponsible, where the noise was a kind of armor and quiet felt too exposed. If that's your history, the small surrenders are harder, and they matter even more. I want to tell you about a small surrender I found difficult for a very long time. It was this: allowing the day to end without having been productive enough. I don't know exactly where that standard came from. Productive enough. But it was there, quietly running in the background, every single evening. A soft but persistent audit of the day. Did I do enough? Did I move forward enough? Did I use the hours well enough? And if the answer felt uncertain, which it almost always did, there was this low residue of guilt that sat with me into the night. Not dramatic guilt, just a quiet dissatisfaction, a sense of having been slightly insufficient. And what I noticed over time was that this nightly audit was not making me more productive. It was making me more tired. It was taking the hours that were supposed to be rest and filling them with a kind of low-grade performance review. It was turning the end of the day, which should have been a closing, a completion, a gentle putting down of things, into just another form of work. The surrender, when it finally came, was small. It was just deciding, one evening, that the day had been enough. Not perfect, not efficient, not everything I had hoped for when I woke up that morning, but enough, and letting that be the last thought before sleep instead of the audit. It sounds so minor, but something shifted, not immediately, not completely, but gradually. Over many evenings, the end of the day started to feel different, a little softer, a little more like an actual ending. Maybe your small surrender looks different. Maybe it's letting go of a conversation you wish had gone differently, releasing, just for tonight, the version of it where you said the right thing and the other person understood and everything resolved cleanly. Maybe it's putting down the comparison, the quiet measuring of your life against the lives of other people, most of which you only see in fragments. Anyway, maybe it's giving yourself permission to not know yet, to be in the uncertain middle of something without needing to force an ending before the story is ready. Maybe it's just this: sitting here, listening to this, and letting your shoulders drop a little further than they were a moment ago. That counts too. Small surrenders accumulate. One quiet letting go leads to another, and then another, and slowly, not in a straight line, not without setbacks, not in any kind of tidy progression, the mind starts to trust that rest is safe, that stillness is not danger, that quiet is not the enemy, that you do not have to be vigilant every single moment of every single day in order for things to be okay, and that trust, fragile and slow growing as it is the ground on which a quieter mind can eventually, gently. I want to change one word, just one. Most of us talk about inner peace as a destination, as something we are trying to reach, a place we will eventually arrive at if we do enough of the right things, practice enough of the right habits, heal enough of the right wounds. We talk about it the way we talk about a city on a map. I'm not there yet, but I'm working toward it. I'm getting closer. And that framing, without meaning to, makes peace feel very far away. It makes it feel like something that belongs to the future, to the better version of yourself that has figured more things out, to the life that has fewer complications, fewer uncertainties, fewer unresolved things sitting quietly in the corners. It makes right now feel like the waiting room. But what if peace isn't a destination? What if it's more like a place you already know? Not a place you're trying to reach for the first time, but a place you return to again and again, sometimes easily, sometimes with effort, sometimes after being away for what feels like a very long time. Returning, not arriving. That's the shift I want to offer. Because here is what I have noticed, both in myself and in the quiet conversations I have with people who are genuinely trying to live more gently. Nobody arrives at peace and stays there permanently. Nobody wakes up one day fully healed, mind completely quiet, and then just lives there forever without the noise ever returning. That's not how it works. The mind drifts. Life happens. Old fears come back wearing new faces. New difficulties arrive before the old ones are fully resolved. Weeks go by where everything feels loud again, and the stillness feels very distant, and you wonder if you've somehow lost the progress you thought you'd made. You haven't lost it. You've just drifted, and drifting is not failure. Drifting is human. The practice, if we want to call it that, is not in never drifting. The practice is in knowing how to find your way back. And the beautiful thing about returning rather than arriving is that every time you come back, you remember the way a little better. Every time you find that quiet place again, even briefly, even imperfectly, the path back becomes slightly more familiar. Not easier necessarily, but more known. I think about people who have learned to navigate by feel, sailors who know a particular stretch of water so well that they can find their way even in fog. Not because the fog isn't real, not because the visibility is perfect, but because they've made the journey enough times that something in them recognizes the way. That's what returning builds, a kind of inner navigation, a quiet knowing that even when the mind is loud and the stillness feels completely out of reach, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there at the bottom of the snow globe, waiting patiently for the settling. and you know how to get back. Not perfectly, not immediately, but eventually, you know how. I want to say something about the times when returning feels impossible, because they exist, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. There are periods in life, sometimes short, sometimes terribly long, when the noise is not just background hum. When it's loud and relentless and close. When grief or fear or exhaustion or loneliness fills everything so completely that the idea of a quiet mind feels almost cruel. Like being told to relax during an emergency. Like being handed a small candle in the middle of a very large dark. In those times, I don't think the goal is quiet. I think the goal is just to get through. To be gentle with yourself in the loudest moments. To not add the weight of self-criticism to the weight of everything else. To not tell yourself you should be handling this better, feeling this less, recovering faster. Sometimes the most honest and compassionate thing you can say to yourself is simply this. This is hard right now, and I am doing the best I can. Not as a defeat, as a fact. And facts, held gently, are steadier than the stories we build around them. The returning comes when it comes. You can't force it, but you can make space for it. You make space by not filling every silence immediately. By allowing yourself to sit with discomfort for a moment before reaching for distraction. By choosing, sometimes, the slower thing, the quieter thing, the thing that doesn't produce or achieve or entertain, but simply allows. A walk without headphones sometimes. Sitting outside for 5 minutes before the day begins. Putting the book down before you're ready to stop. And just lying in the dark for a little while, noticing what's there. Drinking your morning coffee without doing anything else at the same time. Just drinking it, tasting it, feeling the warmth of the cup. These aren't solutions, they're invitations. Small, gentle, completely undramatic invitations back to yourself. And here's what I find quietly remarkable about this. You don't need special conditions for returning. You don't need a silent retreat or a perfect morning, or a life with fewer complications, or a mind that has stopped its old patterns entirely. You can return in the middle of an ordinary Wednesday. In a moment between tasks, in the few minutes before sleep, in the space after a difficult conversation, when you choose, instead of immediately picking up your phone, to just sit there for a moment and breathe. You can return in tiny increments, a few seconds of genuine presence, a single breath taken slowly and with full attention. One moment of noticing, really noticing, something simple, quietly running in the background, every single evening. A soft but persistent audit of the day. Did I do enough? Did I move forward enough? Did I use the hours well enough? And if the answer felt uncertain, which it almost always did, there was this low residue of guilt that sat with me into the night. One tiny navigation back to stillness at a time. And over time, not in a week, not in a month, maybe not even in a year, but over time, something changes. Not the world. The world stays complicated, not your history. That remains, not even your mind entirely. It will still drift. It will still worry. It will still wake you up sometimes at 3 a.m. with something it absolutely needs to examine right now, apparently. But your relationship to all of it changes. It becomes slightly less frightening, slightly less personal. You start to understand, in a way that goes deeper than just knowing it intellectually, that the noise is not you. It's something that moves through you, something that visits, something that can be witnessed without being fully inhabited. And you, the quiet part of you, the part that was always there underneath, you start to feel, slowly and imperfectly and wonderfully humanly, a little more like home. Maybe your small surrender looks different. Maybe it's letting go of a conversation you wish had gone differently, releasing, just for tonight, the version of it where you said the right thing and the other person understood and everything resolved cleanly. It's a relationship, a long, patient, deeply human relationship with your own inner life, full of drifting and returning, full of loud periods and quiet ones, full of progress that doesn't look like progress, and setbacks that are actually, underneath, a kind of learning. It's the ongoing practice of coming back, again and again, without judgment, without the demand for perfection, without the exhausting requirement that you have it all figured out before you're allowed to rest. Just coming back to the stillness that was always there, to the quiet that never actually left, to yourself. We've covered a lot of ground today, and yet somehow, it doesn't feel like a lot of ground, does it? It feels more like a slow walk, the kind where you don't really track the distance. You just notice things along the way. A detail here, a small recognition there, a moment where something you felt for a long time finally had words around it. That's what I hoped for today. Not information, not instruction. Just a little company on the wall. I want to gather a few things gently before we part. Not as a summary, not as a list of takeaways. Just a few quiet thoughts to carry with you, lightly, in whatever direction the rest of your day or evening takes you. The noise in your mind is not your enemy. It arrived for reasons, real, human, understandable reasons. It was trying to help you once, and in many ways it still is, in its clumsy, exhausting, well-intentioned way. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to defeat it. You just need, gradually, to help it understand that it's safe to rest sometimes, that you can be still without being in danger, that quiet is not the same as unprotected. The exhaustion you carry is real, even the parts of it you haven't named yet, even the parts that seem too small to mention or too complicated to explain. You don't have to resolve all of it tonight. You don't have to understand all of it to acknowledge that it's there. Sometimes the most relieving thing is simply saying, even just to yourself, even just once, this has been a lot, and meaning it, and letting that be enough for now. Quiet already exists inside you. You don't have to build it or earn it, or achieve some standard of inner development before you're allowed to access it. It's already there. It has always been there. Underneath the noise, underneath the worry, underneath all the living that has accumulated over the years. You just need small moments of returning, not arriving. Returning, again and again, imperfectly, humanly, without the requirement that this time you stay there forever. And the small things matter more than they seem. The minute of sitting quietly before the day begins. The walk taken without filling your ears with sound. The feeling of warm water on your hands. The moment before sleep when you choose, just tonight, to let the day be enough. These are not minor additions to a life. They are the texture of a life that is learning to be gentler with itself. They accumulate in ways you can't always see or measure, but they accumulate. I want to say one more thing before we close. This is something I believe very quietly and very completely. You are not behind. whatever it is you're working through, whatever loud season you're in the middle of, however long it's been since your mind felt genuinely still, however many times you've tried to be calmer, quieter, more present, and felt like you weren't getting it right. You are not behind. There is no timeline for this. There is no point at which you should have arrived already. There is only where you are and the next small step from there, and the grace, the genuine, unglamorous, deeply human grace of continuing to try. That's enough. It really is more than enough. So tonight, wherever you are, whatever city, whatever hour, whatever particular shape your life is in right now, I hope you find one small moment of quiet. Not a perfect moment, not a transformative one necessarily. Just one moment where the snow settles a little, where the background hum softens, even briefly, where you remember, even faintly, that underneath everything, underneath all of it, there is something in you that is steady, something that has been there all along, something quiet, something that is and has always been entirely yours. Rest well, friend. You've earned it. And if this episode gave you something useful, a moment of recognition, a small sense of calm, a feeling that maybe you're not as alone in your inner life as you sometimes feel, I'd love it if you tapped like and subscribe to the channel. It helps you stay connected, and it also helps this little learning community grow. Every click really does make a difference. Goodbye for now, friend.